Welcome to Shredder Fanfic. Like, subscribe, and hype video. Join members to gain early access to new videos. After the main character dies, he wakes up as Giratina inside of Marvel. What will Giratina do inside of Marvel? How will Marvel react to the dark dimension?
Marvel, what if I am reborn as Giratina, create dark dimension. Chapter 1, Origin in the Void. There was no light when I awoke, only the feel of motion ending. The last thing I remembered was the blinding rush of headlights and the slam of metal against flesh. My body had shattered, then silence. Now, I stood somewhere else. When my eyes opened, I saw a skyline that didn't belong to my world. Glass towers climbed into the clouds. Beneath them, a living grid of cars, people, and noise stretched endlessly. The smell of fuel mixed with salt air. I knew the city instantly. New York. And above it, cutting through the afternoon sky, flew a figure I recognized from memory and fiction alike. Red and gold armor gleamed in the sunlight, blue repulsors burning as he moved. Iron Man, in his first-generation suit, streaking toward the horizon. That single sight confirmed it. I wasn't dreaming. I wasn't hallucinating. I was inside the Marvel Universe. I looked down to steady myself and froze. My body was not human. It wasn't even mortal. Black scales shimmered faintly under the sun. Gold spikes extended from my sides. 6 wings moved in slow, natural rhythm, each trailing threads of red energy that cut the air. Giratina. I knew that name even before the thought formed. The knowledge came as instinct. My form pulsed with a quiet, constant vibration, the hum of antimatter, the pull of a creature born to exist where balance did not. For a long moment I said nothing, only listened to the hum of this body and the world around it. My wings folded once, their edges brushing through the air without sound. The city beneath me kept moving, oblivious to the giant shadow hovering above their clouds. That was good. I had no reason to be seen. I turned away from the skyline. Iron Man's flight vanished beyond the city limits. I focused on what came next. I needed isolation. I shifted my wings slightly and the air bent. In an instant, the world around me dissolved, colors blurring into gray streaks, sound flattening into nothing. Space folded, and I stepped out of that layer of existence. Silence followed. There was no ground. No sky. Only the dark between everything. This was the space outside universes, the raw canvas from which they were born. Empty, infinite, untouched. Perfect. I floated in that void, motionless. The blackness pressed in from every direction, yet it did not feel suffocating. It was potential, limitless and waiting. I extended one claw and closed my eyes. In Pokémon's lore, Giratina was exiled into distortion. A mirror realm that opposed order. But I was not following that script, I was the one writing it. I remembered every detail of this universe's structure, every cosmic entity that ruled sections of it. They all drew power from pre-existing forces: space, time, soul, reality, mind, power. I was not part of their hierarchy. My strength came from inversion itself. That meant I could build where they could not. I began by releasing the energy inside me. It emerged as slow waves of red light that rippled across the void. The waves did not fade, they stayed suspended, forming a glowing grid around me. Then I pulled. The space between the lights folded inward. A faint vibration ran through the void, like the heartbeat of something enormous. The folds deepened, forming a hollow sphere the size of a small moon. It was empty inside, but the boundaries shimmered with distorted gravity. That was the first boundary. I expanded it further, layer by layer. Each time I opened my wings, the sphere doubled in size. The void twisted as dimensions bent to accommodate it. After several minutes, the boundary stretched beyond all measurement. There was no more horizon, only endless curvature. Then I began to fill it. The first element was structure. I released energy filaments from my wings, weaving them into a vast lattice that spread evenly throughout the sphere. Each filament thickened, merging with others to create stable intersections points that would serve as the physical skeleton of the dimension. Next came substance. From the energy core in my chest, I emitted streams of dark matter and antimatter, perfectly balanced. When they met, they neutralized each other partially, leaving behind inert matter shaped by my will. The first pieces of land formed dark grey fragments suspended in the air, slowly rotating. They floated with no up or down. Gravity was relative here, direction would depend on choice, not law. I continued the process. One by one, the fragments grew into continents, archipelagos of black stone and metallic sand. Some twisted into rings that looped infinitely, others stretched into massive spires reaching nowhere. When the foundations settled, I shaped the sky or what would serve as one. I reached upward, spreading my claws. Energy flowed outward, painting the upper layers with faint light silver clouds that moved without wind. Behind them, red cracks of energy ran like veins, their glow constant but not blinding. The result was neither day nor night, only equilibrium. I turned slowly, examining the field around me. It stretched endlessly now, seamless and detached from the void outside. The sphere's walls had dissolved into transparency, replaced by expanding distortion that self-sustained. It no longer needed the outer void to define its edges. That meant the dimension was independent. I anchored it to itself, closed all routes leading outward. Every frequency that might align with another universe was sealed behind layers of spatial interference. No portal could open unless I allowed it. Even the strongest cosmic entity would find nothing but silence if they searched for this place. When that final step completed, I let my body relax. The energy in my wings dimmed. The distortion world was complete. I hovered over the nearest floating continent. Beneath me, black stone gleamed faintly with reflections from red light above. The ground flexed slightly under pressure but remained solid. I landed, claws scraping the surface with a low hum. It was empty, no wind, no life, no echo. Only the sound of energy resonating through the air. I walked forward slowly. Each step left a faint ripple in the space beneath me. The environment responded to will alone. If I imagined a path curving upward, the ground obeyed. I tested it. A slope formed, spiraling into the sky before looping back. Gravity reversed halfway, yet I never fell. The realm was absolute, its laws rewritten under my command. This world would not obey the same logic as any other. It would not connect to Earth or any plane tied to cosmic law. It would remain isolated forever, unobserved, unlinked, unbound. I reached the center of the dimension, a hollow point of calm where energy converged. A circular platform hovered there, suspended by invisible force. I settled onto it and folded my wings. I concentrated again. The core of this realm required balance. I gathered the energy from every layer of distortion, compressing it into a single sphere of condensed antimatter. It shone white-hot, then cooled into a steady golden glow. That was the heart of the distortion world. It would sustain itself without draining anything external. I felt the air vibrate as the heart stabilized. Every fragment of land shifted minutely, finding its equilibrium. Streams of crimson energy connected them all to the center like veins. For the first time since awakening, I allowed myself a breath of satisfaction. The creation was finished. I had taken nothing from the Marvel universe, no particle, no energy trace. The distortion world existed separately, sealed in infinite space. If this universe vanished, mine would remain untouched. I walked along the platform's edge. The endless horizon of black and silver extended beyond sight. Some parts shimmered faintly, as though testing new forms. I could shape them into anything if I wished: oceans of reversed water, forests of crystal, storms of magnetic light. But not now. Creation itself was enough. I crouched, placing one claw against the ground. The energy beneath responded instantly, flowing upward in ripples. With a few adjustments, I ensured the realm's energy cycle would remain constant, antimatter generation balanced by reabsorption. No decay, no entropy. A perfect, stable eternity. I stood again and spread my wings wide. Red light poured from them, illuminating the horizon. For a moment, I simply watched the light reflect off the surfaces I had formed. The distortion world was silent, but it was alive. This was what I was meant to do. Not to rule, not to fight, but to build. To give shape to the void. When the energy stabilized completely, I withdrew the light. The realm entered stillness. I hovered once more, letting gravity fade. My body glowed faintly, resonating with the energy of the new world. Every heartbeat echoed through the entire dimension like a drumbeat marking time's beginning. No one would ever know it existed. No being in Marvel, no cosmic observer, no hero, no villain. It was mine alone, pure, absolute, and separate. I remained still, eyes half closed, listening to the hum of balance. For the first time since awakening, everything was quiet. The void beyond this place continued to stretch infinitely, but that no longer mattered. I had my own universe now, born from silence, shaped by will, sustained by equilibrium. And I would keep it that way. Chapter 2, Birth of the Strong. The distortion world had been silent for what felt like a day. Its air carried no sound, no movement, no trace of breath. The lands I had shaped hovered motionless, vast continents of black stone suspended in calm, surrounded by rivers of red light that flowed through the air instead of water. The energy cycle had stabilized. Gravity, time, and motion now obeyed me entirely. It was time to fill this place with life. I hovered in the center of the realm, wings unfolding fully. The red and gold plating along my body glowed with steady power. I knew exactly how life would function here. This world was not meant for peace or fragility. It was balanced through strength. Anything that could not endure the weight of its own existence would vanish. I closed my eyes and began the process. First, I drew upon the energy at the core, the golden sphere that served as the heart of the realm. I extended both claws, channeling that light outward. Thin threads of energy spread from my fingertips and curved through the empty space, weaving patterns that intersected and spun like a living web. Each intersection became a seed. I willed them to grow. Energy condensed, forming shapes, some large, some small. The process accelerated until countless sparks filled the air. They glowed white, then cooled into solid form. Wings, scales, exoskeletons, carapaces, claws, feathers, skin. Shapes multiplied. Some crawled along the floating rock, others took flight immediately, and others sank beneath invisible gravity currents, adapting instinctively. In minutes, the empty realm filled with motion. I observed their emergence carefully. One creature, the size of a small building, resembled a quadruped of black stone with red fissures across its back. Its breath emitted faint heat waves, vapor rising with each exhale. Another, smaller, had silver wings and a body shaped like a narrow shard, cutting through the air in circular motions. Dozens of smaller forms clustered around them, some reptilian, some insect-like, others amorphous masses that changed shape as they moved. Each carried a fragment of my energy. That meant they were mine completely. There would never be rebellion, never disobedience. They would protect the world I built and me within it. I increased the output, letting the creation expand further. The golden sphere at the core pulsed rhythmically, releasing waves of life energy that rippled across the entire dimension. With every pulse, thousands more creatures formed. Some emerged directly from the energy rivers in the air, dripping out like molten light before solidifying. Others grew from the ground, rising as crystalline forms before breaking free and moving independently. In total, I created over 1 billion beings. They filled every space, covering land, air, and void. The distortion world, once silent, now roared with life. The sound was constant, thousands of calls, movements, and collisions. The energy currents shifted violently under the strain, struggling to balance the mass of activity. I adjusted it gradually, expanding the realm's depth to prevent collapse. The creatures interacted immediately. Some gathered in clusters, forming primitive groups. Others began to attack without hesitation. I watched the first conflict unfold. Two massive beings, both made of obsidian scales, charged at each other. The collision broke their armor, scattering fragments of red energy into the air. Smaller predators rushed in to feed on the remnants. The process repeated across the entire dimension. Chaos erupted everywhere. I didn't intervene. This was the purpose. Only those who could survive and adapt deserved to remain. Weakness would destroy the balance. I floated higher above the chaos, wings folding around me. Below, explosions of energy flared as creatures fought for dominance. The rivers of red light churned faster, glowing brighter with each death. When a creature fell, its energy returned to the realm's core, recycled for future stability. I felt no disappointment. The outcome had been certain from the beginning. 1 billion could not coexist indefinitely in balance. Hours passed. The fighting spread. Swarms of smaller creatures formed alliances for survival. Larger predators hunted them, sometimes wiping out thousands in a single sweep. Flightless forms evolved new limbs rapidly, changing structure mid-battle. Everything moved with speed beyond natural biology because their source energy came from me. Evolution was instant, adaptation automatic. By the end of the first full cycle of this realm's artificial day, the outcome had shifted drastically. Of the original billion, only around 100 million remained. The rest had been destroyed, consumed, disintegrated, or absorbed back into the realm. I hovered silently, scanning the survivors. The weaker species had vanished completely. The remaining ones were stronger, larger, and more efficient. Some had grown intelligent enough to form groups that hunted in formation. Others developed armor resistant to most environmental hazards. Good. That was how this world would remain. The surviving creatures turned their attention upward briefly, sensing my gaze. I felt their awareness through the link that bound them to me. There was no fear. Only recognition and loyalty. Their minds aligned instantly, bowing in instinctive submission. I lowered my wings slightly in acknowledgement. They did not need words. Their loyalty was absolute. I drifted lower, touching down on the edge of one of the black continents. The surface trembled under the collective presence of the surviving creatures. Some approached slowly, towering beasts whose heads were crowned with red horns, eyes glowing with steady light. Others stayed at a distance, watching in silence. One of the closest beings, a massive, serpentine creature of silver armor and red lines, lowered its head toward me. Its voice was deep and clear. "Master," it said. I looked at it carefully. Its speech was simple, direct, a result of the energy patterns I had embedded in its mind. The tone was calm, neither emotional nor hesitant. "You have done well to endure," I said. My own voice echoed through the realm, steady and clear. The creature straightened, its wings expanding. Around it, smaller beings followed the motion, lowering their bodies in unison. I felt faint satisfaction at the display. Loyalty on this scale would never need enforcement. They were extensions of my will. I turned my gaze across the horizon. The realm stretched infinitely, filled with motion and light. The 100 million survivors spread across continents and floating land masses, rebuilding their domains. Some began to establish fixed territories, marking boundaries with energy lines that flickered in patterns visible even from here. The rivers of red energy that crossed the realm thickened slightly as they absorbed residual power from the fallen. The overall strength of the remaining creatures increased accordingly. Balance had been achieved again. I stepped forward slowly, claws scraping the ground. "Continue," I said quietly. They understood immediately. The word rippled through the link, and every creature resumed activity. Groups dispersed, spreading across the dimension. The largest took to the skies, maintaining distance from each other to prevent resource collapse. Smaller species began shaping nests along cliffs and within crystal caverns formed from condensed energy. I observed each development carefully. The variety of forms fascinated me. Some had evolved entirely new structures, six-legged armor beasts that breathed red plasma, avian forms with metallic feathers sharp enough to cut through stone, aquatic beings that swam through the air as though it were liquid. Their presence stabilized the dimension further. The energy flow became smoother, regulated by the constant exchange between living and decaying matter. I had expected this result and confirmed it through observation. Satisfied, I moved toward the realm's core. The golden sphere pulsed steadily, stronger now after absorbing the energy of the fallen. It glowed with greater intensity, illuminating the nearby land. I extended one claw toward it, feeling the warmth spread through me. Each beat of that core echoed with the rhythm of the realm itself. It was alive in every sense. I focused on maintaining stability. The balance between life creation and energy reclamation needed to remain equal. Too much creation would cause expansion instability, too little would lead to stagnation. The current ratio was perfect. I hovered in front of the sphere for several minutes, monitoring flow readings through instinct rather than sight. Everything aligned. I turned back toward the horizon once more. The surviving creatures had adapted fully. Faint lights flickered across the distant lands as they established presence. This world had reached its second stage. I raised one claw, sending a pulse of command through the link. Every creature paused momentarily as they received it. The meaning was simple: maintain the balance. The acknowledgement returned instantly, millions of minds echoing their response as one. I lowered my claw and let the connection fade back to normal. The silence returned gradually, though movement continued. The noise of conflict had subsided, replaced by the steady rhythm of existence. Life in the distortion world had taken its form. I remained above the core, wings extended slightly. I watched them move for a long time, ensuring no imbalance appeared. Their strength would continue to grow. Each generation born from these survivors would inherit the same energy pattern, the same absolute loyalty. Weakness would always be purged naturally. I folded my wings again. The creation of life had succeeded exactly as intended. The realm no longer needed constant supervision. Its systems would sustain themselves indefinitely. I turned away from the core and began to rise. The light from below dimmed gradually as I ascended. The black sky above remained clear, its color unchanging. My wings spread wider, carrying me higher until the entire realm lay beneath me. Millions of glowing light's eyes, energy trails, reflections moved across the surface like controlled order. The process had concluded correctly. I would allow the distortion world to mature further on its own before taking the next step in development. Chapter 3, The Human Vessel. Creation had expanded beyond the first horizon. The distortion world now contained hundreds of planets orbiting luminous cores, each one sustained by my will. Their surfaces were varied, some barren and metallic, others covered in black oceans or crystal fields. Each had life. I had made over 100 billion creatures across the realm, each loyal and self-sufficient. They lived, evolved, and thrived without interference. The structure was perfect, and I had no need to remain inside its center any longer. My attention turned outward again toward the universe of men, where time moved forward and power accumulated in different forms. Marvel's world was nearing a critical era. I knew its order, its sequence of events, every crisis that would shape it. The cosmic entities would not sense me as long as I stayed minimal. But there was one element I wanted, an energy rare even among the stones of infinity. Chaos. To find it, I needed to walk among humans. I focused on a single point within the endless void and condensed my power. The air around me shimmered. From the distortion, I drew a human shape, forming bone, skin, and blood. It was simple, male, tall, built with average features, dark eyes, short hair. The energy core remained sealed deep within, unseen and unreadable. The transformation finished with a pulse of light. I stepped forward and felt gravity pull differently. The air was denser, warm. My wings, my true body, faded from perception entirely. This form would pass unnoticed. I opened my eyes. The sky above was dim, illuminated by artificial light. I stood on a rooftop overlooking Harlem. The sound of combat shook the ground, metal against concrete, roaring, crashing. I moved to the edge and looked down. Two figures clashed in the streets below. One, enormous and green, was pure rage and muscle, the Hulk, his movements fueled by raw power. The other, taller and heavily mutated, had bone plates and a twisted grin, the Abomination. They tore through buildings with each strike. This was the fight that ended before the world truly knew the Hulk's scale. It placed the timeline perfectly before the Battle of New York, before Thor arrived, while the Ancient One still guarded the sanctum in secret. I watched them trade blows for a moment. The ground trembled with every impact. Cars flew aside, glass shattered, and people screamed in panic. The military shouted orders nearby, but no weapon could stop either creature. I leapt from the rooftop, landing silently on the cracked pavement below. The shockwave from their strikes rippled through the ground. The Hulk slammed the Abomination into a wall, leaving a deep crater. The creature roared and swung back, sending debris flying. I stepped forward. Dust brushed past my face. The Abomination turned, eyes narrowing at the sight of me. His snarl deepened. I raised one hand slightly. Stop! He charged instead, body shaking the ground. I exhaled once and extended a single finger. I released a trace less than a fraction of the energy sealed inside me. It spread outward in an instant. The Abomination froze mid-motion. His body lifted slightly from the ground before slamming down, cracking the pavement beneath him. The sound of impact echoed through the street. He didn't move again. Hulk stopped a few steps away, breathing heavily. He looked down at the fallen enemy, then at me. His expression was confused but not hostile. I met his gaze. He's finished, I said calmly. Hulk tilted his head slightly, frowning. He grunted once, more curious than angry, before leaping away into the distance. The noise faded quickly. I glanced at the motionless body one more time to ensure complete unconsciousness, then vanished. Teleportation across realities had no resistance for me. The world folded once, and when I opened my eyes again, I stood inside a dark hallway made of reinforced steel. The air smelled of oil, electricity, and chemicals. Hydra. The location was deep underground, an old base in Eastern Europe. I remembered it from memory. This was where they kept the twins. My footsteps echoed softly as I walked forward. The lights flickered slightly, and alarms began to sound. Armed soldiers rushed out of corridors, shouting orders in German. I raised my hand slightly. A pulse of red light spread across the hallway. The soldiers collapsed instantly, their weapons disintegrating before they hit the floor. The energy moved through the base like a wave, silent and unstoppable. I adjusted the output to avoid destroying the structure. I needed it intact long enough to reach my destination. I moved deeper into the base. The walls glowed faintly from the residual distortion. Every door that blocked my path bent inward, folding under minimal force. When I entered the main laboratory, the lights were dim and flickering. Broken glass lined the floor. The smell of ozone filled the air. At the far end, 2 containment chambers stood, each holding a figure. I stepped closer. Inside one chamber, a young man with silver hair sat quietly, head lowered. Pietro Maximoff. His posture was tense but not defiant. In the other chamber, a young woman with long brown hair stood with her eyes fixed on me. Wanda. They looked exactly as I remembered from this point in time. Hydra's test subjects, not yet awakened to their full powers. Their eyes held a faint glow of the potential hidden inside, though the energy remained dormant. I approached slowly. The sound of my steps drew Pietro's attention. He looked up sharply, his expression hard. "Who are you?" His accent was thick, voice sharp and fast. I stopped several meters from the glass. "I'm not with them," I said plainly. Wanda's eyes narrowed slightly. "Then what are you doing here?" "To see you," I replied. Pietro frowned. "You shouldn't be here. They'll come back." "They won't," I said. He glanced at the door. "You killed them." "Yes." He blinked once, uncertain if he had heard correctly. Wanda's expression remained unreadable, though her hand tightened slightly at her side. I studied her carefully. The chaos energy within her hadn't surfaced yet. It slept deep inside her soul, waiting for the right conditions: trauma, exposure to an infinity stone, loss. I could feel it faintly, a quiet current beneath her heartbeat. She didn't notice my gaze but stayed cautious. "You don't look like Hydra," she said quietly. "I'm not," I answered. "Then why are you here?" Pietro asked. "I'm looking for something," I said. "And it's inside her." Wanda took a half step back, her eyes narrowing. "Inside me?" "Yes." Her voice dropped. "What are you talking about?" "Your energy," I said. "It's not active yet." Pietro's expression hardened. "You're one of them. You came for experiments." "No," I shook my head once. "I don't need to test anything. I already understand it." He clenched his fists, though he stayed close to his sister. "If you touch her, I won't harm her." I looked between them. "You will both be free soon. I came only to see the source myself." The tension didn't fade immediately. Pietro's stance stayed guarded. Wanda, however, didn't look away. Her eyes studied me with faint curiosity. "How do you know about it?" she asked. "I know everything that will happen," I said quietly. Pietro exhaled sharply, annoyed. "You sound like them. Always with riddles." I ignored him and turned my attention to Wanda again. "You will awaken soon. When you do, your power will change the structure of this world." She frowned slightly. "You make it sound like a warning." "It isn't," I said. "It's observation." Silence followed for several seconds. The lights above flickered again. The base creaked under the strain of the damage I had caused earlier. I could sense no survivors. Pietro finally asked, "If you're not Hydra, then why are you still here?" "I came for her energy," I repeated. "But it's not time to take it. She's not ready." Wanda's brow furrowed. "Take it." I nodded once. "When it awakens, I'll return." "You talk like it's already decided," she said. "It is," I replied. Her gaze didn't waver. "You don't scare me." "I'm not trying to," I said simply. She looked confused at the calm tone. Pietro took a step forward, frowning. "If you mean to hurt her." "I don't," I said, cutting him off. "If I wanted to, you wouldn't still be standing." He hesitated, then stopped. I turned my head slightly, listening. The structure around us was beginning to collapse in sections. Time was limited. I lifted one hand and drew a small circle in the air. The distortion opened a silent red shimmer. "Stay here," I said quietly. "Your time is coming soon." Wanda's eyes moved to the distortion, then back to me. "Who are you really?" "Someone who builds," I said. The air distorted once more. I stepped through the shimmer, leaving them behind as the sound of crumbling metal filled the base. The void of the distortion world embraced me instantly. The silence returned, steady and calm. The hundreds of planets I had created shone in the distance, faint but constant. The pulse of their combined energy resonated with mine. I stood motionless for a moment, feeling the echo of Wanda's latent energy still lingering in my mind. It was weak now, unformed. But it would grow. And when it did, it would be worth more than any infinity stone. I turned away from the thought, focusing on the stars of my realm. There was work to continue. Chapter 4, The Offer of Power. A week had passed since my encounter with the twins. Hydra's base had been erased, leaving nothing for Shield or anyone else to find. I had returned briefly to the distortion world, observed the growth of the new planets, and then left again. My human form had stabilized completely. No one on Earth, not even the Ancient One, could sense my presence. Now, my focus turned to Asgard. I had watched this world's timeline unfold before, and I knew exactly when to act. Odin had entered his Odin sleep, the deep slumber that restored his life force. Thor was still banished to Earth, stripped of his hammer. That left Loki, the trickster prince, alone on the throne. A perfect moment. I opened a dimensional rift and stepped through. The distortion folded around me, and when I emerged, I stood at the edge of Asgard's rainbow bridge. The view stretched outward endlessly, the golden city shining beneath a pale sky, rivers of light flowing through the air. The air carried the scent of metal and clean water, and distant music echoed faintly from the city's heart. I walked forward, boots clicking softly against the bridge's surface. The guards stationed at the gate stiffened immediately. Their armor glimmered, and each held a spear tipped with pure energy. "Halt," one called, raising his weapon. "State your purpose." "I seek an audience with the king," I said evenly. They exchanged looks. One hesitated, glancing toward the palace far beyond. "The Alfather rests. The throne is not open for visitors." "The Alfather sleeps," I corrected. "And Loki rules." They frowned at the accuracy, unsure how I knew. Before they could object, I lifted my hand. Space twisted slightly around my fingers. The energy ripple silenced them instantly. They lowered their spears and stepped aside without another word. I walked past them, continuing along the golden pathway toward the palace. The great doors of the throne hall stood open, sunlight spilling across the floor. Inside, the room was vast and silent except for the faint hum of the throne's energy core. The golden seat gleamed under the light, and upon it sat Loki. He wore black and gold armor, his green cape draped neatly over one shoulder. The crown rested lightly on his head, and his expression was composed satisfaction mixed with a hint of fatigue. When he noticed me, he straightened slightly, eyes narrowing. "Who enters the palace of Asgard unannounced?" he asked, voice smooth and calm. I stopped several steps away from the throne. "Someone with an offer." He studied me closely. "An offer? You appear mortal. What could a mortal offer a god?" "Power," I said. His expression changed slightly, curiosity with amusement. "Power, you say?" He smiled faintly. "You are either very bold or very foolish. I already possess what I need." "Do you?" I asked. He tilted his head, eyes sharp. "I rule Asgard now. My father slumbers, my brother is gone. I have the throne, the armies, and the respect I was denied." "You have their obedience," I said. not their respect. The smile faded. His fingers tapped the throne's armrest once, slow and measured. You speak as if you know much, stranger. I know everything that happens in this realm, I said calmly. And I know how this ends. He leaned forward slightly. And how does it end? You lose everything. Loki stared for a moment, then laughed softly. The sound echoed through the hall. You come into my court, speak of my downfall, and call it an offer of power? Truly, you are entertaining. I didn't move. His laughter stopped when I released a trace of energy. The light in the room dimmed instantly. The air grew heavy. Loki's smirk vanished as pressure filled the hall so dense that the floor cracked beneath my feet. He gripped the sides of his throne, eyes widening as his knees buckled. The power pressing down was only a fraction, barely perceptible to me, but to him it was unbearable. The golden throne creaked. Loki tried to stand, but his body refused. The pressure increased slightly until he sank to one knee. His breath grew uneven. I looked down at him. Do you still think I am immortal? The silence in the hall was absolute. Even the guards beyond the door froze as if time itself had stopped. Loki looked up slowly, anger mixed with disbelief. What are you? Someone offering you what you have always wanted, I said. Power beyond Thor. Recognition. Control. The ability to protect what you choose. He stared at me, eyes narrowing again. His voice was quieter now. And what would you want in return? Nothing you can't afford, I said. Your loyalty will be enough. He was silent for several seconds, then spoke carefully. You would make me stronger than Thor. Yes. He hesitated, the conflict clear in his expression. He had desired that his entire life to be stronger, to be acknowledged, to be seen as equal. The temptation was immediate. I released the pressure slightly, enough for him to stand. He straightened slowly, still breathing heavily. If what you say is true, he said, then show me. I extended one hand. A small fragment of red energy floated above my palm, pulsing with controlled rhythm. This will give you what you want. 10% of my power. He frowned. 10%? You claim much for yourself. Take it, and see. Loki hesitated only briefly before stepping closer. The moment he touched the energy, it spread through him. His eyes widened as his body trembled. The red light wrapped around his arms and chest before sinking into his skin. The energy balanced perfectly, fusing with his essence without tearing it apart. His magic responded immediately, flaring brighter than before. The air around him shimmered. The golden floor beneath his boots cracked under the sudden surge of force. He looked down at his hands, astonished. This is incredible. I watched quietly. Now you understand. He raised his head, his grin returning, wider this time. You weren't lying. I can feel it, power beyond what even Odin holds. That's correct, I said. Mentally, I knew it was half true. His strength now exceeded Odin's in combat potential, but not in experience. Still, compared to my full capacity, what I gave him wasn't even 1% of my power. He laughed softly, turning his hands over as energy shimmered along his fingertips. Magnificent. Thor will kneel when he returns. You can do as you wish, I said. Use it wisely. This power will obey only your will. He looked at me again, still smiling. You've done what no one else could. Tell me your name. Names are unnecessary, I said. Then at least accept my gratitude, he said, lowering his head slightly. You've given me more than I ever dreamed. I nodded once. Good. I turned away, already focusing on the next step. Loki's newfound strength would keep Asgard stable for now. My purpose here wasn't just him, it was also the treasures Asgard kept hidden. Without another word, I vanished. When I reappeared, I stood in the vault beneath the palace, the Asgardian treasure room. The air was cool and still, illuminated by pale light reflecting off countless artifacts. Rows of relics stood in glass cases or on pedestals. Each held immense power, weapons, artifacts, and ancient remnants gathered over millennia. I walked slowly through the rows, scanning each item. The casket of ancient winters. The eternal flame. The Tesseract's containment unit, though I knew it wasn't here, it had already been moved to Odin's chamber for study. Dozens of other relics glowed faintly, each radiating unique energy signatures. I extended my hand, releasing a controlled wave of distortion. The air shimmered. Every relic lifted from its pedestal and floated toward me, their containment fields disintegrating. The destroyer armor stood silently at the far end of the hall, motionless. I ignored it. Its purpose was defense, not value. I focused on the rest. The artifacts condensed into small spheres of energy and vanished into my dimensional storage one by one. Each was catalogued instantly, preserved without damage. Within moments, the vault was empty except for the destroyer. I glanced around once more, ensuring nothing remained. The faint hum of energy faded completely. My task was finished. As I turned to leave, I sensed Loki above, still testing his power in the throne room. His energy flared occasionally, shaking parts of the palace. He was enjoying his new strength. I left him to it. The air bent again as I stepped through space, returning to the edge of Asgard's realm. The golden city shone behind me, undisturbed. From here, the Bifrost Bridge stretched toward the void, its colors faintly pulsing. I looked once toward the palace. Loki's reign would continue as expected. Thor would return eventually, the timeline would proceed, but with subtle changes now, none that would matter to me. I spread my hand, opening a small rift back to my realm. The light of Asgard faded behind me as I stepped through. The distortion world greeted me with silence and motionless air. The hundreds of planets I had made still orbited the central light calmly. Their populations thrived without issue. The order I created remained perfect. I hovered above the core for a moment, focusing on the energy I had gathered. The Asgardian treasures glowed faintly within the dimensional space, each one stable, preserved for future use. I closed my hand, sealing them completely. Everything was proceeding as intended. Chapter 5, Armament of the Chosen. The return to my world was instant. The silence was unchanged, the energy steady. The planets moved in precise rhythm around the golden core. Each rotation was synchronized, their gravitational fields interlocking with mathematical perfection. Every light, every current of air, and every movement of life answered to my will. I extended my awareness outward. The distortion world had grown vast. Hundreds of planets now formed complete solar systems, each one filled with unique ecosystems. The larger ones supported continents and oceans. The smaller ones held only stone, fire, or air. Between them floated artificial moons that drew in energy and distributed it equally among the systems. Everything was balanced. Still, I wanted expansion. I raised my right hand, channeling raw power into the core. The golden sphere pulsed, releasing a shockwave that traveled through the entire dimension. The sky rippled with energy as gravity folded to make room for more creation. The new systems took shape one after another. Each formed with stability already in place, stars of red light surrounded by orbiting planets of varying sizes. The process continued for hours until the count reached double what existed before. The new worlds were smaller, designed to host specific environments rather than full civilizations. When the creation settled, I looked down toward the nearest populated world. It was one of the oldest planets I had made, home to many of my strongest creations. Their loyalty was complete. They ruled their lands in order, enforcing the same rule I had established from the beginning: only strength determines survival. I descended through the atmosphere silently. The air was warm, filled with red clouds that shimmered faintly from the energy currents flowing above. Below, a wide plain stretched across the horizon, covered in black grass and shining crystals. Dozens of enormous beings waited there, each one sensing my arrival. They were my elite. Each had been born from concentrated fragments of my power beings shaped to lead. Their forms resembled the structure of Pokémon, but none matched any species that existed in that universe. They were my original designs, formed from energy and substance drawn directly from distortion. One stood taller than the rest, covered in segmented silver armor with red light glowing between the plates. Its face resembled a wolf's, but the body was closer to a dragon's. It lowered its head as I landed. "Master," it said, voice deep and controlled. I nodded slightly. "You've all gathered as ordered?" "Yes, Master," another said, a winged creature with a narrow body and black scales lined with gold streaks. "The armies are prepared. The worlds await command." I looked around at the gathered group, 20 of the strongest leaders among billions. "You've maintained order well," I said. They bowed in unison. The ground trembled slightly under the motion. I extended my hand, releasing faint red energy. In front of me appeared several objects, metallic, glowing faintly with contained power. The treasures of Asgard. The light from them spread across the field, reflecting off every armored surface. The creatures looked at the relics with instinctive awe. "These are from another realm," I said. "Each holds power forged by gods. You will use them." The winged one tilted its head slightly. "To strengthen us further, Master." "Yes." I motioned to the largest, the silver-armored beast. A long spear materialized before it, the Gungnir, Odin's weapon. The spear hovered in the air for a moment before drifting toward the creature. "Take it," I said. It reached forward carefully, claws closing around the weapon. The moment it made contact, the runes along the spear flared. Energy surged through the creature's body, harmonizing with its own. Its eyes glowed briefly, and its stance grew more stable. The weapon accepted the new wielder without resistance. The others watched silently. I raised my other hand. Several more relics appeared, swords, shields, and staffs taken from Asgard's vault. Each carried specific energy signatures. I distributed them one by one. A dark-scaled creature with 4 legs received a sword forged from Uru metal, its blade shimmering faintly with internal light. A towering avian form received a staff topped with a red gem that glowed with latent fire energy. A smaller, serpent-like being was given twin daggers that floated around its body like orbiting satellites. Each artifact adjusted instantly to its new bearer, linking through distortion energy instead of divine magic. I made sure of that. They would draw power from the dimension itself, not from Asgard's enchantments. The moment the process finished, the field filled with waves of energy. The creatures tested their weapons, briefly controlled strikes that sent visible ripples through the air but caused no destruction. The silver-armored leader knelt again. "These gifts will not be wasted." "I know," I said. "You will oversee the new systems. Each of you will take command of a cluster and maintain stability." I've expanded the realm again, its boundaries doubled. They exchanged glances, the air vibrating from their energy. "How many new worlds?" one asked. "Hundreds," I said. "They're still forming. You'll guide their development." They all lowered their heads in acknowledgement. I looked around the field again. The ground beneath us shimmered faintly from the pressure of so much concentrated power. I could feel the entire realm responding to the synchronization of our energies. The planets adjusted their rotation slightly to balance the new output. "Maintain the balance," I said simply. "Yes, Master," the group answered together. I turned slightly, my gaze lifting toward the sky. The red clouds parted, revealing the core star of this world, a bright sphere of gold. I rose slowly, floating above them. The winged leader looked up. "Will you remain here, Master?" "For now," I said. "There's still work to finish." They bowed again before dispersing. Their movements created brief trails of energy that split across the landscape as they ascended to their respective worlds. Once they were gone, I flew higher into the upper atmosphere. From here, I could see the entire star system, a central sun surrounded by 9 planets. Beyond that, hundreds more dots of light marked the distant new systems still forming. I extended my awareness outward again, checking each one. The newer worlds were raw, uninhabited yet stable. The cores rotated correctly, their temperatures within range. I adjusted several orbital paths, ensuring no collisions would occur. It took hours to align every variable. When finished, the realm stood complete again, vast, orderly, alive. I returned my focus to the planet below. The energy readings from the Asgardian weapons stabilized perfectly. Their power output matched the user's own distortion frequency, creating no imbalance. That result was expected but satisfying. I descended again to the planet's surface, landing on a ridge overlooking the field where the meeting had taken place. The black grass swayed slightly in the energy wind. The silver-armored leader reappeared, spear still in hand. "All systems report balance," it said. "Expansion continues without resistance." "Good," I said. It nodded once, then paused. "Master, the Asgard weapons are effective. Their energy enhances control precision. Our soldiers train faster." "That's their purpose," I said. It looked down at the spear again. "Permission to test its limit." "Granted," I said. The creature turned toward the open plain. It lifted the spear and aimed it forward. A beam of concentrated energy shot from the tip, striking the distant horizon. The blast expanded silently, leveling an entire ridge of mountains before dissipating. The air settled again quickly, absorbed by the realm's self-correcting environment. I observed the readings. "Control is good. Keep output below this level unless ordered." "Yes, Master." I watched as it lowered the spear, visibly adjusting to the new weight of responsibility. I spent the next hours moving across the other planets. On each one, I checked the development of its guardians and civilizations. The younger worlds had smaller creatures, newly formed. They evolved quickly under the pressure of distortion energy. None required interference yet. By the time I returned to the central core, the expansion process had finished entirely. The number of planets now exceeded 1,000. Most of them orbited in groups around 20 suns, forming structured networks that distributed energy evenly. I stood at the heart of the realm, above the golden sphere that powered everything. The light from it pulsed slowly, steady and calm. I opened a small rift beside me. Through it, several of the newly created weapons from Asgard hovered, unused relics that had yet to find owners. I stored them within the core for safekeeping. They would serve as reserve assets should any leader fall or any new one rise. The energy balance across the realm adjusted again. The readings displayed stability far beyond initial expectations. The power efficiency had increased by nearly 50%, thanks to the synchronization of divine and distortion technologies. Satisfied, I closed the rift. I stayed still for a while, listening to the hum of the world around me. Every sound, every pulse, every life form existed because I willed it. Every creature born here carried loyalty as its first instinct. There was no need for enforcement or control. Order existed naturally. The leaders with their new weapons would expand further on their own. The new planets would be filled in time. My work here was momentarily complete. I turned my gaze outward again, past the edge of the distortion world, toward the distant universe of men. The connection between realms remained sealed and undetectable, but I could still perceive time's passage there. Thor remained on Earth. Loki ruled Asgard with the power I had given him. The timeline continued its course toward the events I already knew. There was still Wanda's energy to claim. But not yet. For now, I would allow both realms to grow. One in silence, one in noise. I lowered my hand again, and the golden core's light dimmed slightly, entering a rest phase. The surrounding air cooled as the dimension settled into balance. The distortion world expanded endlessly around me, filled with new stars and countless lives, all bound to my command. Chapter 6, The 5 Blades of Distortion. The distortion world remained stable after expansion. Its planets rotated in flawless rhythm, their atmospheres perfectly balanced. Energy flowed freely through the channels I had woven, connecting every world to the golden core. Life prospered without resistance. But peace did not mean readiness. The creatures who ruled my worlds were powerful, but I needed an elite group of vanguard that could act beyond this dimension if necessary. 5 chosen beings capable of serving as extensions of my will. I hovered above the central core, surrounded by faint rings of golden light. Energy drifted upward, forming solid shapes. I reached into that light, drawing from the essence of the strongest life forms across the realm. Each form began to take shape before me. The first was Vera, tall and lean, with scales of black iron and blue lines glowing faintly across her arms. She carried a spear of condensed distortion energy, and her presence alone caused gravity to fluctuate slightly around her. Her eyes were focused, calm, and sharp. The second, Kor, stood heavier broad shoulders, crimson armor fused directly to his flesh. He carried a massive double-edged blade across his back, and the air around him shimmered with contained heat. The third was Rin, smaller and faster, a creature of sleek metal and flesh, 4 arms that could move faster than sight. His energy signature pulsed rhythmically like a controlled storm. The fourth, Myra, radiated controlled cold. Her body was smooth silver with translucent wings that emitted faint light. Her power focused on containment and defense, her precision unmatched. The last was Drake, massive and quiet, with black skin covered in golden streaks. He carried no visible weapon, but his energy was dense enough to warp space around him slightly. They stood before me in a line, their heads lowered in perfect synchronization. "You 5, I said evenly, will serve as my guard. You are the strongest of this world, and your strength will continue to grow. Your loyalty will never waver." "Yes, Master," they answered together, their voices unified and steady. I studied them carefully. Each one's energy output equaled what I estimated the Asgardian Thor currently possessed, still early in his development, but formidable. For their age, this level of power was exceptional. "You will act when I command," I said. "No one outside this world is to know of your existence unless I allow it." They bowed their heads again. "Prepare," I said. "We are leaving." They straightened instantly. I opened a rift. The energy folded in on itself, revealing a corridor of light. We stepped through, and in an instant, the distortion world vanished behind us. We emerged in deep space, near the edges of the Andromeda cluster. Stars burned quietly in the distance. Before us floated a massive ship, circular, metallic, patched together from stolen parts. Its engines flickered blue. The Milano. The Guardians of the Galaxy were inside. I walked forward through the vacuum. My body adjusted automatically to the lack of atmosphere. My guard followed silently behind me, their movements synchronized, wings and limbs leaving faint trails of red light. When we reached the ship, I extended a hand. The metal hull shimmered before a small opening formed, large enough for entry. I stepped through, the 5 following. The interior of the ship smelled faintly of fuel and stale food. The lights flickered from uneven power flow. At the far end of the main deck, I saw them 5 figures exactly as expected. Peter Quill stood nearest the pilot's chair, music faintly audible from his headset. Rocket sat on the control panel, checking a weapon. Groot stood behind him, silent and observant. Drax leaned against the wall, sharpening his knives. Gamera sat at the table, scanning a display screen. The music stopped when I entered. Peter looked up, frowning. "Okay, who the hell are you, and how did you get on my ship?" Rocket raised his blaster immediately. "Quill, you got about 5 seconds to say the right thing, or I start shooting." I looked at them calmly. "I came to offer you a deal." Drax's eyes narrowed. "We don't take deals from strangers who appear in our home." Gamera stood slowly, her posture alert. "You bypassed our entry field. No one can do that." "I can," I said. Peter squinted. "That's not creepy at all." "What, you some kind of wizard?" "In a sense," I replied. He glanced at Rocket, then back at me. "Right. And what kind of deal are we talking about?" "Money. Power. Whatever you want," I said. "In exchange, I need something simple." Rocket tilted his head. "How much money are we talking?" "Enough to buy any planet you choose," I said. That got their attention. Peter crossed his arms, smirking. "That's a big promise, pal. And what could you possibly need from us that's worth that much?" "Coordinates," I said. "To what?" Gamera asked. "The Infinity Stones." The air went quiet for a moment. Even Rocket stopped fidgeting. Peter laughed after a few seconds. "Okay, wow. You're serious?" "Yes." He laughed harder, shaking his head. "You come in here with 5 glowing bodyguards, talk about money and power, and now you want directions to cosmic doomsday rocks? Buddy, I've met people who make more sense after 10 drinks." I didn't move. The laughter stopped when I released a trace of my energy. The lights in the ship flickered violently, and the floor vibrated. Every metal surface groaned under the pressure. Rocket dropped his blaster by instinct, and even Drax froze, eyes wide. Peter's smirk vanished immediately. "Okay," he said quickly, raising his hands. "You're serious?" "I don't joke," I said. He glanced at his team, then back at me. "You really just want coordinates? That's it?" "Yes." Rocket frowned. "What do you even need M for?" "Collection," I said simply. Gamera stepped forward. "You know what those stones can do?" "I know everything about them," I said. "Where they are, what they are, and what they become. I only need to confirm their current locations." She studied me carefully. "You're not from any system I've heard of." "I'm not," I said. Peter hesitated, looking between his teammates. "If we give you the coordinates, what happens next?" "Nothing to you," I said. "You'll get your payment. And you'll never see me again." Rocket scratched behind his ear. "And what's the payment look like exactly?" "You keep throwing that word around, but I don't see any credits." I turned slightly, motioning toward my guard. "Bring it." Vera stepped forward, holding a small orb of light. She placed it on the table. It expanded instantly, revealing a container filled with crystalline energy cores, each one radiating enough power to sustain a planet for centuries. Rocket's mouth fell open. "Holy, that's real." "Yes," I said. Drax blinked slowly. "That is enough wealth to buy Xandar itself." Peter rubbed the back of his neck, still unsure. "Okay. Say we believe you. What exactly are you planning to do with these stones?" "'Cause, last time someone got their hands on one, things got explodey." "I won't use them the way others have," I said. They're not my goal. Their energy is. Gamera folded her arms. You're not collecting them for Thanos. No. Then for who? She asked. For myself. Peter stared at me for a few seconds, then sighed. I really hate how calm you are. Rocket tapped the orb again, eyes bright. So, do we get half up front? Yes, I said. Vera moved her claw slightly, and the orb split in half. One portion remained on the table. Peter looked at it, then at me. Fine, he said. You get what you want. But I'm not going near another stone after the whole Purple One incident. I only need the coordinates, I said. Gamera exhaled quietly. The Power Stone was last seen on Xandar. The Nova Corps keeps it under heavy guard. Rocket nodded. The Reality Stone's with some creepy guy called the Collector. Last we heard, he's still hanging out on Nohir. Drax added, the Soul Stone's location is unknown. I know where it is, I said. Peter leaned on the table. The Mind Stones with Earth, yeah? And the Time ones with some monk group? Yes. He frowned. How the hell do you know all that already? I told you, I said. I know everything that happens in this universe. Rocket muttered something under his breath, eyes still on the orb of energy. If he's lying, he's doing a damn good job of it. I turned slightly toward the exit. Your part is done. Peter raised a hand. Wait, that's it? You're just leaving? No threats, no explosions. I don't need to repeat myself, I said. He blinked, then shrugged slightly. Okay. Weirdest payday of my life. I walked toward the exit, my guard following silently behind. Before stepping out, I looked back once. If anyone asks, I said, you never saw me. Rocket waved a hand. Sure thing, big guy. Whatever keeps us from getting vaporized. I nodded once and stepped through the opening. The air outside folded as the metal sealed behind us. We stood in space again. The Milano drifted quietly below. Vera spoke first. They gave the information easily, Master. As expected, I said. Kor's voice rumbled deeply. Shall we retrieve the stones now? Not yet, I said. We move according to sequence. They all nodded, silent and obedient. The coordinates burned clearly in my mind, each one a beacon of immense power scattered across the galaxy. The path forward was clear. I raised my hand. The rift opened once more, and we stepped through together, leaving the galaxy behind. Chapter 7, The Power of Xandar. The rift opened on the edge of the Andromeda system. Beyond it, the Nova Empire's crown jewel came into view, Xandar. The planet floated in calm rotation, half bathed in sunlight, half in shadow. Its cities shone like polished metal, each level layered with perfect symmetry. Civilian ships crossed the atmosphere in steady streams, their traffic patterns controlled by precise guidance networks. I had been here once before, in another life, when it was only a name from a movie. Seeing it now, alive and structured, made it different. The world thrived on law and order, a perfect place to hide something that should never be found. The Power Stone was kept here, locked within the Nova Corps vault beneath the main command structure. I knew its location exactly. The 5 of my guard waited beside me, standing motionless in space. Their energy was muted to avoid detection. Vera, I said. She bowed her head slightly. Yes, Master. You will lead the entry. Yes. She spread her wings once, red energy flickering along their edges, and then vanished in a flash of motion. The others followed silently. We entered Xandar's orbit and descended slowly through the upper atmosphere. The air thickened as heat and pressure rose, but our distortion fields dispersed both. When we broke through the clouds, the city spread beneath us, white spires, floating bridges, and long boulevards packed with vehicles. The streets were clean, and citizens moved in ordered lines. We landed quietly on the roof of a high structure near the Nova Corps headquarters. The building's surface reflected the sky like glass. "Security presence is dense," Myra reported. Her voice was soft but even. "Motion sensors every 20 meters. Power grids overlap the vault entrance." "Expected," I said. Rin crouched beside her, his arms moving quickly as his fingers generated light trails across the surface. "I can disable their sensors without alerting the command system," he said. "But the shield around the vault will need direct contact." "Do it," I said. He nodded once and vanished in a blur. Within seconds, the city's surveillance network flickered briefly before stabilizing again. To the Nova Corps, it would appear as a momentary energy fluctuation. To us, it meant invisibility. Corps looked down toward the ground far below. "Should I clear a path, Master?" "No," I said. "No casualties. We move without notice." He nodded, gripping his blade's handle briefly in acknowledgement. When Rin returned, the sensors around the headquarters had already been neutralized. "Systems are down," he said. "They won't detect our movement for 6 minutes." "That's enough," I said. We moved. Our descent from the roof left no sound. The distortion field covered us completely. We reached the lower entrance of the headquarters, where Nova soldiers patrolled in pairs. Their armor gleamed under the artificial light, and their movements were precise. Vera raised her hand slightly. A faint ripple of red energy expanded outward, touching the guards gently. They froze mid-step, their bodies held in suspended animation. We walked past them without pause. The corridors inside were bright and sterile. The Nova Corps symbol lined every wall, glowing blue. Voices echoed distantly from communication rooms. We passed several officers who didn't see us. The elevator to the vault was locked by both key and genetic verification. I placed my hand on the scanner. The panel lit red, then white, as distortion energy bypassed its systems entirely. The door slid open. We descended. The chamber beneath the main building was circular and heavily reinforced. Dozens of cables fed power into the containment structure at the center, a transparent column filled with energy. The power stone floated inside, locked within a small metal housing that pulsed purple. Even through the containment field, its raw energy vibrated against the air. "Stabilizers at maximum output," Myra observed. "Contact without proper shielding will cause detonation." "I know," I said. I stepped closer. The air thickened as I approached, distortion field pushing against the stone's pulse. The two energies resonated briefly. Cor's eyes followed the glow carefully. "This is what destroyed entire armies," he said. "Yes," I said. "And it will serve me now." Vera extended her spear slightly. "Master, the Nova forces are mobilizing. They've detected a power irregularity." "Let them," I said. I raised my hand. The energy inside me condensed sharply, focused into a single point. I pressed it against the containment barrier. The field distorted instantly. Light bent around my hand, and the air filled with sound, a deep vibration that shook the room. The protective seals disintegrated in a flash. The power stone floated freely. Its energy lashed out violently, a surge of raw destruction that tore through the chamber. The others shielded themselves, but the distortion absorbed most of it. The stone's surface pulsed like a living heart, uncontrolled and feral. I closed my hand around it. The energy rushed through me immediately. My body absorbed the impact easily, the stone's raw force converting into stable form within seconds. The wild pulse settled. I opened my hand again. The power stone rested calmly against my palm. "It's done," I said. The others lowered their defenses. The room was damaged but intact. Above us, alarms began to blare. The Nova Corps had detected the breach. Vera turned her head toward the ceiling. Incoming troops, 200 meters above. They'll arrive in 30 seconds, Rin added. We leave, I said. I opened a rift directly within the vault. The distortion field spread, covering all 6 of us. The moment the Nova troops reached the chamber door, the entire space was empty. We emerged outside the planet's orbit again, far above the atmosphere. Xandar's alarms still echoed faintly through the vacuum, visible as flashing red lights on the surface. I looked down at the stone again. The glow reflected against my hand, stable and silent. Vera hovered beside me. Master, will you use it? No, I said. It remains contained. Its purpose will come later. She nodded. The others maintained formation, scanning the surrounding space for pursuit. None came. The Nova Corps had no means to track distortion energy. Return, I said. The 5 bowed their heads. The rift opened again, and we stepped through. The familiar darkness of the distortion world surrounded us once more. The air was steady, calm, and warm from the energy flow. I walked toward the golden core at the center, the others following silently. When I reached it, I lifted the power stone. The golden light reflected across its surface, purple energy flickering faintly in response. I released a strand of distortion and wrapped it around the stone, sealing it within a small containment sphere. The sphere floated upward, merging with the golden core. The integration process began immediately. The stone's energy fed into the realm, strengthening every layer of existence. The planets glowed faintly as their energy density increased. The realm's gravity expanded slightly to compensate. Myra observed the readings from her wrist device. Stabilization complete, she said. Energy levels up by 32%. Good, I said. Core stepped forward. Master, should we prepare for another collection? Yes, I said. The reality stone is next. Rin tilted his head slightly. The collector holds it on no here. His defenses are weak. We won't need force unless necessary, I said. He values trade more than conflict. Vera nodded. Shall I begin preparations? Yes. 2 hours, I said. They dispersed immediately to their respective stations within the realm. I remained by the core, watching the glow from the power stone blend with the golden light. The energy radiated smoothly through the network of distortion, reaching every planet and creature. The entire realm strengthened. After several minutes, the process stabilized fully. The golden sphere pulsed once, brighter than before, then returned to normal rhythm. The power stone now belonged to this dimension. I turned toward the outer edge of the realm. The next target was already fixed in my mind, no here, home of the collector. The reality stone awaited there, dormant and unguarded beyond his limited awareness. The sequence continued as planned. Chapter 8, The Collector's Deal. No here hung in the void like a monument carved from a corpse. The severed head of a celestial floated among debris, its hollow eyes glowing faintly with industrial light. Ships of every kind drifted through the open docking channels, cargo freighters, mercenary crafts, black market vessels. The air here always carried a mix of oil, smoke, and burnt metal. We arrived just outside the outer perimeter, where security drones scanned every incoming ship. I masked our signatures completely. The drones passed without notice. Landing coordinates secured, Myra said softly. Proceed, I said. The distortion field around our craft shifted, allowing it to materialize silently on one of the outer docks. From here, the market stretched ahead, rows of traders, smugglers, and alien travelers moving through the maze of lights and noise. The collector's gallery lay deep within the city's center. I knew the route from memory. I turned to my guard. Vera and Myra will come with me. The rest remain here. Yes, Master, they answered. Kor crossed his arms. If conflict arises. It won't, I said. He values trade more than his life. The three of us exited the craft and stepped onto the metal walkway. The crowd parted slightly as we passed. Even without visible power, our presence carried weight. Eyes followed us from every direction, but none dared approach. The corridors of Nohir wound inward through old bone and reinforced metal. The deeper we went, the quieter it became. At the final level, 2 armored guards stood before a wide door marked with golden symbols. One raised a hand. The collector is not accepting visitors. He will, I said. The guard frowned. Who are you? I lifted my hand slightly. The metal of their weapons twisted out of shape, bending into harmless coils. They stepped back immediately, fear flickering across their faces. The door opened without resistance. Inside, the air was colder. The walls glowed with soft light, illuminating glass cases filled with relics, weapons, and preserved creatures from countless worlds. Each case was labeled, each object perfectly arranged. The scent of sterilization chemicals lingered faintly in the air. At the center of the hall, Tanelir Tavan the collector stood examining a crystalline fragment through a magnifying lens. His white hair shimmered under the lights, and his long coat brushed the floor as he turned toward us. He smiled immediately, though the expression was cautious. Visitors are rare without appointment, he said. His tone carried a smooth rhythm, polite but measured. I require an item from your collection, I said. He lowered the fragment carefully. Many do, he replied. Few can afford them. I can. His eyes flicked briefly to Vera and Myra before returning to me. You travel with impressive company. But I should warn you, everything here has a price. I know, I said. He walked closer, studying me carefully. You speak with certainty. Most who enter here tremble. I'm not most. He chuckled softly, then gestured toward a nearby table. Tell me, then. What item calls you across the stars to my humble establishment? The ether, I said. The smile faded slightly. He straightened, his fingers tightening around his gloves. The ether is not for trade, he said slowly. It is volatile. Dangerous. Even I take precautions. You won't need it, I said. But I will. He tilted his head, clearly intrigued. You know what it truly is, then? Yes. He exhaled softly. Then you also know its risk. Most beings can't even stand near it. I'm not most beings, I repeated. He regarded me silently for several seconds, then laughed quietly. You remind me of someone who once tried to bargain for the same thing. He didn't leave with it. He wasn't me. Tavan's eyes narrowed slightly. You're confident. I like confidence. It's bad for business but entertaining. He gestured toward a corridor leading deeper into the gallery. Follow me. We moved through rows of more exhibits. Preserved alien bodies floated in tanks, ancient weapons glowed softly within containment fields, and rare minerals pulsed with inner light. The collector walked slowly, talking as he went. The ether is special. It doesn't behave like other artifacts. It's alive in its own way. Fluid, adaptable, temperamental. I'm aware, I said. He smiled again, though it was thinner this time. Of course you are. We reached a sealed chamber guarded by reinforced glass. Inside, suspended within a containment field, floated a dark red mist that shifted constantly in shape. The reality stone, still unrefined in liquid form. The ether. The collector spread his arms slightly. Behold! Beautiful, isn't it? I stepped closer. Release it. He blinked once, startled by the directness. You expect me to just give it to you? I don't expect, I said. I offer. His smile returned faintly. And what exactly would you offer in return? I extended my hand. A small orb of condensed distortion energy appeared in my palm. Its light illuminated the room, shifting colors from red to gold to white. The energy within was pure, stable, and powerful. This, I said. He stared at it, fascinated. I've never seen energy like that. It's contained chaos. Accept it, and it's yours, I said. He hesitated, torn between greed and caution. You make it sound simple. It is. He took a slow breath, then nodded. Very well. He turned toward the control panel beside the chamber. His fingers moved across the interface, disabling the containment sequence. The glass dissolved silently. The ether drifted outward in slow, graceful motion. The air grew heavier as its power spread through the room. Tavan stepped back immediately, clearly uneasy. Careful, he said quickly. It reacts to proximity. I walked forward without hesitation. The mist reached toward me instinctively, sensing the pull of my energy. It touched my arm and stabilized instantly, the movement ceasing completely. The collector's eyes widened. Remarkable. I absorbed the ether in one motion. The energy flowed into me smoothly, merging with my essence without resistance. The entire process took only seconds. When the red glow vanished, I turned to Tavan. He still stared, speechless. The trade is complete, I said. He exhaled shakily, glancing at the orb still floating near me. I see why you were confident. You can keep the energy, I said. He reached for it carefully, hands trembling slightly. When his fingers touched the orb, it didn't harm him. Instead, it stabilized into solid form, compact and perfectly balanced. He looked at it with a mix of awe and disbelief. This will power my entire collection for centuries. Then our business is done, I said. He nodded quickly. Indeed. And I must say, this has been one of my more profitable encounters. Feel free to return, though I suspect you won't need to. I won't, I said. I turned toward the exit. Vera and Myra followed silently. The collector watched us go, still holding the orb close to his chest. We left the gallery without interference. The guards outside avoided eye contact, sensing what had changed. Once clear of the building, we moved through the market without slowing. The crowd parted automatically. The distortion field reactivated, cloaking us entirely from sight. When we reached the ship, Kor and the others waited at the dock. All secure? He asked. Yes, I said. We entered the craft. As soon as the doors sealed, I released the energy gathered from the ether. It flowed outward in controlled waves, expanding through the distortion matrix. The ship's systems adjusted instantly, stabilizing around the surge. The energy is merging smoothly, Myra confirmed. Good, I said. Vera turned from the controls. Destination, Master. Home, I said. The ship vanished from the dock, leaving only a faint ripple in space. The journey back to the distortion world took seconds. When we emerged, the realm greeted us with its constant calm. The planets glowed brighter now, energized from the Power Stone's influence. We landed near the golden core once more. I stepped out, the others following. The sphere pulsed with familiar rhythm, ready to receive new energy. I raised my hand. The ether's essence, now stabilized as the reality stone, materialized above my palm. It glowed red, spinning slowly. I released it into the air. The sphere of the realm opened slightly, drawing it in. The integration began immediately. The golden and red lights mixed, forming waves of color that spread across the sky. Every world in the dimension reacted. The ground steadied, the air thickened with energy, and life across the realm felt the change. Structures realigned, ecosystems expanded, and power density increased again. Integration complete, Myra reported after several minutes. The realm is stronger, Core added, watching the horizon. Continue monitoring, I said. They bowed their heads. I turned toward the core again. The two stones now pulsed together, purple and red light intertwined within the gold. Their combined energy stabilized the realm at a level beyond measurable scale. The process had succeeded. I faced the 5. Our next target is on Earth, I said. The Mind Stone. Rin nodded slightly. That one is guarded by human forces and Asgardian magic. I know, I said. That's why we'll approach carefully. Vera raised her spear slightly. Will you go alone, Master? No, I said. But we won't draw attention. The humans aren't ready to see this power. They nodded again. The plan moved forward without hesitation. Chapter 9, The Mind and the Space. Earth's night sky was quiet when I descended through the upper atmosphere. The city below was New York again, bright, restless, and unaware of the power hidden within it. Somewhere beneath the glass towers and concrete streets, SHIELD kept what they didn't yet understand. Inside a secure facility, they held a weapon they thought was simple technology. They had no idea it carried one of the Infinity Stones. The Mind Stone. At this point in time, Loki had already lost the staff after his failed attempt to take the planet. SHIELD possessed it now, though they didn't realize what rested inside the blue casing at its tip. They studied it under glass, thinking it was a mere energy source. I landed silently on the roof of the Triskelion replica that had been rebuilt after Hydra's fall. The night air carried the faint hum of electricity and the rhythmic sound of patrol helicopters in the distance. The wind brushed against my coat as I crouched. From here, I could see the entire complex, rows of reinforced windows and steel corridors glowing with sterile light. My human form moved unseen. No alarms triggered. I phased through the rooftop material as though it wasn't there, stepping into a dimly lit hallway. The floor beneath me vibrated faintly from the hum of generators. Vera and Rin accompanied me, cloaked in distortion fields. Myra remained above, watching for interference. Target location, 3 levels below, Rin said softly. Proceed, I said. We moved in silence. Every camera we passed turned away slightly as the distortion energy disrupted their sensors. Guards walked their patterns unaware. When one paused directly ahead, Rin flicked his wrist, sending a pulse that put the man to sleep instantly. His body lowered to the ground without sound. We reached the lower containment area. Heavy doors lined the corridor, each secured by access panels. At the end of the hall stood a large glass chamber. Inside, on a metal pedestal, rested Loki's scepter. The golden handle gleamed under white light. The gem embedded at its tip glowed faintly blue. Energy readings danced across nearby monitors. Scientists had left for the night, only a handful of guards remained near the entrance. Vera looked to me. Neutralize. Non-lethal, I said. She nodded and extended her spear slightly. A faint wave of energy rippled outward. The guards froze where they stood, eyes closing as they fell into deep unconsciousness. I entered the chamber. The hum of the staff filled the air. I walked closer, studying the containment field surrounding it. The barrier is weak, Rin said quietly. Standard energy lock. I can bypass it. Do it, I said. He placed his hands on the control panel. Within seconds, the barrier flickered and vanished. The air shifted immediately as the weapon's energy spread outward. The gem glowed brighter, reacting to my presence. I reached out and took the staff in my hand. The moment I touched it, the field of energy surrounding it pulsed violently before stabilizing. The Mind Stone recognized me instantly. I pressed my thumb against the casing. The metal surface cracked open like thin glass, revealing the yellow stone beneath. The light inside it burned steady and pure. I removed the shell completely and held the stone itself in my palm. The power entered me in a single wave. My vision adjusted instantly, and the energy within me realigned. The resonance between the Mind Stone and the reality and power stones already within my realm was immediate. I closed my hand, stabilizing the output. The hum of the energy died down. Extraction complete, I said. Vera scanned the corridor. No reaction from the upper floors. Good, I said. We're done here. We moved back through the halls as quietly as we had entered. The facility's systems remained unaware of the intrusion. When we reached the roof again, Myra descended from above. Status, she asked. Secured, I said. She nodded once. I opened a small rift. The city below blurred out of sight. We re-emerged above the clouds, leaving Earth's atmosphere behind. The Mind Stone floated between my fingers, light reflecting faintly off its polished surface. Its energy was controlled now, but I could still feel its nature: the endless thought, the constant awareness, the unfiltered connection to consciousness. It was different from the others. It didn't merely hold power, it saw. Return to the realm, I said. The others followed through the rift. The familiar silence of the distortion world greeted us again. The core shone brighter now than ever, its rhythm matching the combined pulse of the two stones already merged within. I walked to its edge and lifted the Mind Stone. The golden light reached out to it instantly. The energy field adjusted to accept the new addition. When I released it, the stone rose into the air, spinning slowly as it melted into the core's surface. The sphere expanded slightly, accommodating the new power. Streams of yellow light spread outward through the realm, connecting to the existing red and purple lines. Each planet in the dimension glowed briefly as the energy passed through it. Rin watched the readings on his display. Integration rate increasing beyond previous records. Stability? I asked. Absolute, he said. Good, I replied. I waited until the light settled before turning away. One more remained nearby the space stone. I already knew its location. It rested within the vaults of Asgard, sealed within the Tesseract. Loki had once used it, and Odin had taken it back. With Odin still in the Odin sleep, Loki ruled Asgard. The timing was perfect again. I faced my guard. Stay here, I said. I will go alone. They bowed their heads immediately. The rift opened again, and I stepped through. The air changed. I emerged within Asgard's palace halls. The faint glow of torches lined the golden corridors, casting long shadows across the polished floor. The sound of footsteps echoed distantly, guards on routine patrols. I moved silently toward the vaults. I remembered every turn, every door, every hidden path. The treasure hall's entrance appeared exactly as before, two guards at the gate, armored and alert. I approached without hiding my presence this time. One of them raised his spear. Who goes there? I looked at him. Open the door. He frowned. Only the king may enter. I released a small pulse of energy. Both guards staggered back and collapsed without harm. The door opened on its own. Inside, the vault was quiet. The treasures glimmered under soft white light. Each artifact rested in its place as I had left them, except for one, the destroyer, still inactive at the far end. The tesseract rested on its pedestal near the center, glowing blue through the transparent casing. The light from it reflected across the walls, filling the room with an almost serene glow. I walked toward it. The containment field shimmered faintly, but it posed no resistance. I reached through it and took the cube in my hand. The energy reacted immediately, light flaring outward before calming. The cube's surface was smooth, cold, and heavy. Inside it, the space stone pulsed quietly. I tightened my grip slightly. The cube cracked along its edges, splitting open in perfect symmetry. A wave of blue light flooded the room, and the stone emerged, floating above my palm. The power within it was pure spatial energy movement, travel, boundaries, everything tied to distance and connection. I held it for several seconds, aligning its frequency with the others I controlled. The balance came easily. When it settled, I opened a rift behind me. Before stepping through, I looked once toward the empty hall. Loki's rule continued above, unbothered. He wouldn't notice the missing artifact until long after I left. I stepped through the portal. The distortion world appeared again, brighter than before. The golden core pulsed strongly, energy rising in steady rhythm. I raised my hand. The space stone hovered above my palm, its blue light reflecting off the golden surface of the core. When I released it, the stone drifted forward, joining the others. The moment it merged, the entire realm shifted. Blue energy spread across the horizon, weaving into the existing network of red, purple, and yellow. Every world within the realm stabilized instantly. The gravitational flow corrected itself. Distances between planets adjusted into symmetrical formations. Myra observed the readings from her wrist. "Spatial alignment complete," she said. "Excellent," I said. The core's light dimmed slightly, returning to steady rhythm. The integration was perfect. 4 stones now pulsed within the heart of the distortion world, each maintaining its own energy field but working together in balance. Power. Reality. Mind. Space. Each had a purpose, and now all 4 answered to me. Core approached, watching the glow. "The realm's reach has expanded. Dimensions beyond this one are visible now." "Expected," I said. "The space stone widens the boundaries." He nodded, stepping back. I studied the flow of energy for a long moment. Every world I had created rotated smoothly. Gravity, light, and time operated in complete synchronization. The realm now stretched beyond its original limits, connecting through invisible corridors that reached into other planes. It no longer existed apart, it could reach anywhere, anytime, if I desired. Vera approached next, her voice steady. "Shall we secure the next target, Master?" "Not yet," I said. "We hold this balance first. Then we move." She bowed her head. I looked again toward the golden core. The 4 lights pulsed in rhythm, each glow distinct but unified. The realm's heartbeat was louder now, clearer. The process was working exactly as intended. Chapter 10, The Keeper of Time. Kamartaj rested quietly under the Himalayas, its courtyard hidden by the layers of ancient mist and the hum of protective wards. Even from a distance, I could feel its energy steady, controlled, disciplined. The city below lived in rhythm, unaware that one of the most powerful relics in existence pulsed above them, guarded by a woman whose calm hid strength greater than any army. The Time Stone. The 5th of 6. I had felt its resonance through the fabric of reality since the moment I integrated the Space Stone. It was close enough that even the air around Earth vibrated slightly with its flow. The sorcerers didn't understand how their magic looked from my perspective. It wasn't spells or words, just directed energy woven through space. I arrived outside the gates of Kamartaj before dawn. The city of Kathmandu slept under the dim glow of the rising sun. I walked down the stone street in my human form, a plain coat, boots that made no sound on the wet ground. My presence muted completely, I appeared no different than a traveler. At the temple gates, 2 students stood guard. They noticed me only when I was a few meters away. "This area is closed to visitors," one said, tone polite but firm. "I'm not a visitor," I replied calmly. He frowned. "Then state your purpose." "I came to speak to your master," I said. The other guard shifted uneasily. "The Ancient One does not take audiences without cause." "She will," I said. Before they could respond, a faint voice came from behind the gate. "Let him in." Both guards looked startled but obeyed. They stepped aside, opening the passage. I walked through without pause. The temple interior smelled faintly of incense and aged stone. Candles burned along the walls, their light steady despite the cold wind from outside. I passed through the courtyard, where several sorcerers practiced energy projection in silence. None approached me, but many watched. At the far end of the hall, beneath an archway lined with symbols, she stood. The Ancient One. She looked exactly as she should at this point in time: bald head, yellow robes, calm posture, and a presence that felt both still and vast. Her expression was unreadable as her gaze met mine. "You've come far," she said quietly. Her tone was neither warm nor cold, only steady. "I don't travel with effort," I said. She studied me carefully. "You're not from this world." "No," I said. "And yet, you walk in it freely." "I go where I choose." A faint hint of interest flickered in her eyes. "You carry many powers within you. I can feel them even through your disguise." "4 stones already, if I'm correct." "You are," I said. She nodded slowly. "Then you've come for the 5th. The time stone," I said plainly. Her fingers tightened slightly at her side, the only visible sign of tension. "You know what it does." "I do." "And yet you want it." "Yes." She exhaled quietly. "You understand I can't simply give it away." "I expected that," I said. "But you also know you can't stop me." Her gaze sharpened. "You speak as if this were a threat." "It isn't," I said. "It's truth. I didn't come to fight." Silence held between us for several seconds. She looked at me, assessing, calculating. "You remind me of something older than time," she said finally. "Something that doesn't belong here, but isn't an enemy either." "I'm not your enemy," I said. "Then what are you?" "Someone who creates balance," I said. Her expression didn't change. "Balance often requires sacrifice." "I know," I said. "That's why I don't ask for yours." Her eyes moved slightly toward the eye of Agamotto resting at her chest. The green gem at its center glowed faintly under the light. "I could open 100 portals and send you through each dimension, and you'd still find your way back here," she said. "Yes," I said. She smiled faintly. "Then there's no use in resisting." "I didn't come for resistance," I said again. "I came for agreement." Her brow lifted slightly. "Agreement?" "Yes." She tilted her head. "And what would I receive in return?" "Protection," I said. "Once." "When you ask." Her expression flickered with surprise before settling again. "You would protect Earth?" "Yes." Her gaze lingered on me for a long moment. "Why offer that? You clearly don't need allies." "Because you'll ask for it one day," I said. She exhaled slowly, understanding dawning in her eyes. "You've seen what comes." "I've seen everything that happens," I said. Her fingers brushed the edge of the eye of Agamotto. "You're confident you can protect this world?" I looked at her directly. "You aren't strong enough to negotiate with me." "But sure, why not? I'll help Earth once." She blinked, surprised by the bluntness, then nodded slowly. "Fair enough." Her hands moved to the eye of Agamotto. The mechanism at its center shifted, opening slightly. The green gem within pulsed with slow rhythm. She lifted it gently, the light reflecting across her calm face. The time stone has been kept safe for centuries, she said quietly. It's not meant to be held by anyone for long. I don't hold them for long, I said. I unify them. That sounds like something a conqueror would say, she said. It sounds like something true, I said. She looked down at the gem for several seconds before nodding once. Then take it. But remember your promise. I stepped forward. She extended her hand without hesitation. The gem glowed brighter as it left her palm, floating toward me. The energy field surrounding it reacted instantly to my presence, recognizing my control. When it touched my hand, the entire temple shifted slightly. Candles flickered, air pressure changed, and for a moment, the world seemed to hold still. The energy inside the gem was precise time itself condensed into a single point. I absorbed it carefully, synchronizing it with the others. The process lasted less than a second. The green light dimmed and then steadied, fully stable. The Ancient One watched silently. It didn't resist you. It couldn't, I said. She folded her hands behind her back. You're different from Thanos. I know, I said. He took through destruction. You take through control. I don't destroy what I don't need to, I said. Her lips curved slightly. Then perhaps the universe is fortunate that it's you holding them. I don't believe in fortune, I said. Of course not, she replied quietly. I turned to leave. When the time comes, call. I'll answer once. I will, she said. I walked toward the exit. The temple doors opened on their own, and the cold wind from the mountains rushed in. I stepped out into the courtyard again. The students nearby looked up but didn't approach. They sensed what had changed. The sky above was pale and clear. I lifted my hand briefly, letting the stone's energy settle completely within me. Time aligned around me effortlessly, seconds slowed, light curved, and the entire planet's rotation felt visible for a heartbeat before I released it. The time stone was secure. I opened a rift and stepped through. The distortion world's horizon welcomed me once more. The air was calm, and the golden core pulsed steadily. I walked toward it, the energy from the new stone already synchronizing with the others. The sphere shifted color again, green joining the mix of red, purple, blue, and yellow. Light from the integration rippled across the dimension, spreading outward in controlled waves. Every planet, every star, and every energy current adjusted in unison. Myra approached, eyes on her display. Integration proceeding smoothly. Stabilization rate? I asked. Perfect balance, she said. Core stood nearby, watching the horizon. The realm expands further each time. We've nearly reached the edge of measurable space. Then measure further, I said. He nodded. I turned back to the core. The 5 stones pulsed together now, creating a rhythm that could be felt even in the air. The combined force changed the realm's structure. Time, space, thought, power, and matter now aligned under one order. The balance was flawless. I looked at my 5 guards. Prepare, I said. There's one more. The soul stone, Vera said quietly. Yes, I said. It rests beyond life. We'll move soon. They nodded together, understanding the sequence. I lifted my gaze toward the endless horizon of my realm. The light from the 5 stones reflected off every planet, turning the sky into a steady glow of color. The process continued exactly as I intended. Chapter 11, Chaos and the Soul. The core of my realm glowed brighter than ever. 5 colors pulsed inside the golden sphere: purple, red, blue, yellow, and green. Power, reality, space, mind, and time moved in one rhythm, each stone stable under my control. The distortion world was quiet, but the air held a steady pressure from the combined energy. I stood at the edge of the core, wings folded behind my true form. My guards waited in front of me on a black stone platform suspended over the light. Vera, Kor, Rin, Myra, and Drake, all of them watched me in stillness, their loyalty clear in their posture. "There is one stone left," I said. My voice carried clearly through the chamber. "The Soul Stone." They did not react outwardly, but their energy flickered slightly. They understood the importance. "It rests on Vormir," I continued. "A dead world, guarded by the keeper of its rules. Its price is fixed. A soul for the stone." Drake's eyes narrowed slightly. "You want us to retrieve it, Master?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "3 of you will go. The rest will remain here to maintain order." Vera stepped forward without hesitation. "I will go, Master." Kor followed. "So will I." Myra bowed her head. "I will complete the trio." Their choice was expected. Vera had the strongest control, Kor had the most direct force, and Myra's precision would handle anything subtle. Vormir required only resolve. They had that. "You know the condition," I said. "The stone will not yield without sacrifice. One must be given." None of them flinched. They accepted the rule without complaint. "We accept, Master," Vera said. "We will return with the stone." I nodded once. "Go." I raised my claw and opened a rift. It shimmered in the air, the edge of the portal glowing faint orange for a brief moment as it locked onto Vormir's coordinate. The 3 stepped through together without looking back. The portal closed behind them. The realm returned to stillness. Rin and Drake remained on the platform. Rin rested 2 of his arms behind his back and kept the other 2 loose at his sides. Drake stood straight, expression calm. "You will both remain and oversee the systems," I said. "No instability while I am gone." "Yes, Master," Drake replied steadily. Rin nodded. "The realm will remain balanced." "I'm leaving for Earth," I said. "Wanda Maximoff's time has come." Their eyes flickered in understanding. They knew I had visited her once before, in that Hydra base that no longer existed. Her chaos energy remained dormant then. That would change now. I shifted into my human form, letting the true body fade. The pressure of my full presence folded inward, contained inside flesh and bone again. Simple coat, boots, hands that passed as human. Without another word, I opened another rift and stepped through. The air changed from warm distortion to cold mountain wind. Snow and broken stone stretched under a grey sky. Sokovia lay ahead in the distance, clustered buildings with worn roofs, streets cracked, and smoke rising from scattered chimneys. It looked tired and angry, just like I remembered. After I destroyed the Hydra base, the twins survived. Without Strucker or Hydra, they became what they should have been: first Sokovian citizens, angry at the world, carrying quiet grief. No experiments, no staff. Their power remained untouched. But the chaos within Wanda was still there, waiting. I walked along the dirt road leading toward the outskirts of the town. The ground was damp, and the air smelled faintly of smoke and metal. The people I passed wore heavy coats, eyes guarded. No one paid me much attention. Strangers were common enough in a place where war moved through every few years. I knew where the twins stayed. A small apartment building near the edge of the city, old and patched the best it could be. I reached the front and climbed the worn staircase. The hallway inside was narrow and dim, lit by a single flickering bulb. At the second floor, I stopped at a plain wooden door and knocked twice. There was a brief silence, then faint footsteps. The door opened a small crack. Wanda looked through the gap, eyes cautious. Her hair was slightly longer than before, worn loose. She wore a simple dark sweater and jeans. Her gaze sharpened when she recognized me. You, she said quietly. Her accent was thick, but her voice was steady. I met her eyes. Wanda. She opened the door wider, still tense. How did you find us? You're not hard to find if you know where to look, I said. She studied me for a second, then stepped aside. Come in. I entered. The apartment was small. A table with 2 chairs, a narrow couch, a tiny kitchen in the corner, and 2 doors leading to separate rooms. The walls were bare. The air smelled of tea and old wood. Pietro appeared from the other room, moving fast even when he walked. His eyes narrowed as soon as he saw me. You again, he said, annoyed. You have a habit of showing up in strange places. I go where I need to, I said. He crossed his arms. You killed everyone in that base and left us standing. Now you break into our home. What do you want? I told you before, I said. I came for her. Wanda's expression tightened slightly, but she didn't look away. My energy, she said quietly. Yes, I answered. Pietro stepped closer to her and put a hand on her shoulder. You're not touching her. I don't need to harm her, I said. In fact, I'm here to give her what was denied to her. He frowned. Denied. I turned my attention to Wanda. There is power inside you. You feel it. It wakes when you are angry or afraid, then disappears before it can form. Her eyes flickered. She stayed silent, but that reaction confirmed it. You feel wrong in your own body sometimes, I continued. Like something is pushing under the surface, trying to get out. Pietro watched her, concern visible in his eyes. He's guessing, he said, though his tone was less confident. He isn't, Wanda said quietly. She took a slow breath. It happens. He looked at her quickly. Since when? For a long time, she said. Since before the base. He clenched his jaw and looked at me with anger. Hydra did something to her. No, I said. They never got the chance. I stopped them before they touched your core. This isn't theirs. Wanda swallowed once. Then what is it? Chaos, I said. Real chaos. Old energy. It sleeps inside you. It's stronger than anything your world is used to. It just needs something to wake it. And you can do that, she asked. Yes. She held my gaze. What do you want in return? I want you to stand with me, I said plainly. Join my guard. Use your power where I command. In return, you gain complete control over what you are. No more confusion. No more waking up afraid of what will happen. Pietro's grip on her shoulder tightened. You want to turn her into a weapon. I want to give her what belongs to her, I said. What she does afterward will be her choice. But I won't lie. I will ask things of her. He stepped between us, eyes sharp. And me. You can follow her, I said. You won't have the same power, but I won't stop you from staying with her. You both already chose each other over everything. He glanced at Wanda. She looked back at him, calm but serious. You're sure about this? He asked her softly. Yes, she answered quietly. He exhaled, frustrated, but his shoulders dropped slightly. If you do this to her and something goes wrong. It won't, I said. He looked at me with open doubt. You sound very sure about everything. I am, I said. Wanda stepped away from him, moving closer to me. Her hands were at her sides, fingers slightly curled. What do you need me to do? She asked. Stand still, I said. Focus on the feeling you've been ignoring. The thing that scares you. Don't fight it this time. Call it forward. She nodded slowly. Here, she asked. Yes, I said. This place will hold. I let my human disguise relax slightly. My eyes brightened with internal light as I let a fraction of the infinity energy show. Power, reality, space, mind, and time rippled under my skin. Not enough to harm anything, but enough to make the air dense. Wanda inhaled sharply as the pressure hit her. Her energy responded immediately. The quiet presence inside her stirred. Close your eyes, I said. She did. Feel it, I continued. The weight behind your thoughts. The way the world sometimes looks wrong at the edges. That's it. Her brow creased. Her breathing changed, deeper now. Pietro watched from behind her, hands balled into fists. He wanted to reach for her but forced himself to stay back. I noticed the tension in his jaw. I lifted my hand slowly and hovered it a few centimeters from her chest, over her heart. I did not touch her. Instead, I opened my internal channels and let the infinity energy bleed outward in a controlled wave. The Mind Stone's signature went first: connection, clarity. It reached for the faint potential of her own. The Reality Stone followed, loosening the rigidity of her body's limits. The Power Stone steadied the flow, preventing overload. Time and space wrapped around the process, cutting it off from the rest of the world so no one could sense it. The effect on her was immediate. Her body trembled once. The energy inside her pure chaos woke fully for the first time. It pushed upward, meeting the infinity energy. Where they contacted, sparks formed. Red glows erupted along her fingers and wrists. Her eyes snapped open. They shone bright crimson. Pietro stepped forward in alarm. Wanda. Don't touch her, I said calmly. She's fine. She raised one hand slowly, staring at the glow wrapping around her fingers. Her expression shifted from shock to something close to awe. I can feel everything, she said quietly. The walls, the air, the building. I can pull it. Twist it. Yes, I said. Control it. Don't let it run wild. Own it. She swallowed once, focusing. The light initially flickered, then settled into a steady glow. The air in the room thickened as the reality around us bent slightly, but everything stayed intact. She looked at me. This was always there. Yes, I said. And you woke it, she said. Yes. She looked down at her hands again. Her expression held a trace of satisfaction now. There was no fear in her eyes anymore, only focus. Pietro exhaled slowly. You're different, he said to her, half impressed and half worried. She smiled faintly, the gesture small but genuine. I feel different, she replied. Better. Any pain? I asked. She shook her head. No. Just wait. But it feels right. Good. The chaos magic had accepted the infinity alignment without backlash. That meant her core was stronger than most cosmic beings. It matched what I already knew about her future potential. Seeing it in front of me felt satisfying. I stepped back slightly. You've awakened. Now you choose. She lowered her hands. The red energy faded to a faint line along her fingers, still present but quiet. You want me in your guard, she said. Yes, I answered. You'll train in my realm. You'll have full use of your power without limits. No one on this planet can give you that. She thought for a moment. It was not hesitation, just processing. Her gaze moved to Pietro. Are you coming? She asked him. He looked at her with a conflicted expression, then nodded firmly. You really need to ask, he said. She smiled again, slightly wider. I wanted to hear you say it. He sighed, shaking his head with a small, resigned smile. Of course I'm coming. Someone has to make sure you don't blow up a planet. You won't, I said. She will learn quickly. He rolled his eyes a little but didn't disagree. I raised my hand. A rift opened in the air beside us, showing only darkness and faint light beyond. Step through, I said. You'll still be able to return here when needed. I'm not taking you home. I'm offering you more. Wanda stared at the portal for a few seconds, then nodded. She walked forward without fear and stepped through. The distortion folded around her and accepted her presence, linking her energy to the realm. Pietro hesitated for half a second, then followed, jaw clenched but eyes determined. I stepped through last. The apartment, the city, and the drifting snow vanished behind us. We emerged in the distortion world above one of the central planets. The sky was black and filled with red and gold currents. The ground beneath us was a wide plateau of dark stone, solid and steady. In the distance, powerful creatures moved along the land and sky, their energy controlled. Wanda stopped and looked around, eyes wide. The realm responded to her arrival with a faint pulse. Her chaos magic flared briefly, then settled. This isn't any place I know, Pietro said warily. He stayed close to her, scanning the surroundings. It's mine, I said simply. Nothing here is a threat to you unless I decide it. She nodded slowly, absorbing the information. I can feel it, she said. This place is strong. Rin and Drake approached from a nearby ridge, their forms towering and armored. They moved with disciplined steps. Master, Rin said, bowing his head. The realm remains stable. They both looked at the twins. Wanda met their gaze steadily. Pietro tensed but did not step back. These two are under my protection, I said. She will join the elite guard. He will remain close to her as follower and support. Rin nodded. Understood, Master. Drake inclined his head slightly at Wanda. Welcome. She took a slow breath, then nodded back. Thank you. Pietro glanced at me. So what now? Training? Tests? Some kind of weird ceremony? No ceremony, I said. Only work. You'll learn to use what you have. He'll learn how to move with it. He made a face but looked a little curious. Fine. As long as I don't have to wear something stupid. That depends on your choices, I said. He frowned. That doesn't sound comforting. Wanda actually let out a soft laugh. It was brief, but real. You'll live, she said. He shrugged. Yeah, well. I'd better. The integration of the twins into my realm felt complete. Wanda's chaos magic aligned neatly with the infinity energy inside the core, and Pietro's presence anchored her emotionally, which would help control. It all fit. Far beyond us, on Vormir, 3 of my guards moved toward the soul stone under the gaze of its warden. One would not return. That was the cost. It was predictable and necessary. Here, in my realm, I had gained something different, a living chaos user who could bend reality itself under my command. Everything was proceeding exactly as I wanted. Chapter 12, The Superior Wall. The soul stone sat quietly inside the core. Orange light had joined the others. 6 colors now pulsed within the golden sphere: purple, red, blue, yellow, green, and orange, each in perfect rhythm. The distortion world felt denser, more complete. Every star, every planet, every current of air carried the force of the stones without strain. Myra did not stand with the others. Her sacrifice on Vormir had been accepted. Vera and Kor had returned with the soul stone and a simple explanation. One had to be given. Myra had stepped forward without hesitation. The stone had answered, and she was gone. I accepted it without regret. It had been the price of power. The realm thrived because the exchange had taken place. That was enough. I stood before my gathered guard on a wide platform of black stone suspended above the core. Vera, Kor, Rin, Drake and Wanda. Pietro stood behind her, slightly off to the side, not part of the formal line but close enough to reach her in a single motion. Wanda wore a dark coat that moved lightly in the energy wind, her hair loose, her eyes calm. Chaos magic flickered faint red along her fingertips, barely visible. Pietro shifted his weight from foot to foot, hands tucked into his pockets, eyes constantly moving across the realm as if he still couldn't believe any of it was real. Below us, the golden sphere glowed steadily. "This realm has what it needs," I said. My voice carried through the chamber. "All 6 stones. Order. Life. Guardians." They listened without speaking. "But this is not the only universe with stones," I continued. "Others exist. Other worlds, other realities. Their stones are part of their own structure. If they fall into the wrong hands, they will affect more than their own plane." Wanda watched me closely, her expression focused. "You are my elite guard," I said. "Your strength is enough to move beyond this dimension. It is time for you to act as more than defenders." I raised my hand slightly, and a map of multiversal threads appeared above the platform, each strand a thin line of light stretching into darkness. Some glowed brighter, some dimmer. A few burned almost white from power density. "One of these universes holds another full set of stones," I said. "Their owners are strong. Their world is advanced. You will go there and test its limits. If possible, retrieve their stones. If not, measure their strength." Kor's grip tightened on his blade, his eyes steady. "We will complete your command, Master." Vera nodded once. "Identify the target universe." I pointed to one of the brightest threads. It burned white-blue, thicker than the rest. "This one," I said. "A superior universe in terms of developed power. Their heroes and their enemies both stand higher than most. It is a good measure." Wanda's eyes narrowed slightly. "Superior how?" she asked quietly. "Technology, magic, and physical power," I said. "They pushed themselves too far, too fast. It forced their world upward." Pietro muttered under his breath, "Sounds fun." I glanced at Wanda. "You will go with them. You will lead the distortion team from the front. Your chaos magic will adapt fastest under pressure." She nodded once, accepting the responsibility without hesitation. "Understood." Pietro raised a hand halfway in a half-serious gesture. "And me?" "You go because she will go," I said. "Your speed and your awareness keep her alive. That is enough." He tried to hide it, but his shoulders loosened slightly at that. "Yet," he said quietly. "I can do that." Rin looked at Wanda with a neutral expression. "We will follow your lead in the field, Lady Wanda." She blinked once at the title but did not reject it. "Just Wanda is fine," she said. Drake inclined his head. "We will adapt," he said calmly. I turned my full attention to Wanda and Pietro. "This universe is stronger than the one you were born in. Do not underestimate what you meet there. If you can't win, return. That is an order." Wanda nodded seriously. "We'll follow that." Pietro smirked faintly. "You sure you want to say that to me? I have a history with orders." "You'll listen," Wanda said firmly, glancing back at him. He exhaled and held up his hands in surrender. Yet. I'll listen." I lifted my claw. A rift opened above the platform, its edges lined with blue and white light. It was different from my normal passages. This one reached across universes, cutting through layered boundaries. The pull from the other side pressed lightly against us. Your target lies beyond this, I said. Move, observe, measure. If you can take the stones, do it. If not, return. I don't need martyrs. They all understood. Vera stepped toward the rift first, spear at her side. Kor followed, massive and solid. Rin and Drake moved next. Wanda paused for a heartbeat, looking down at the core, then stepped forward without looking back. Pietro followed at her shoulder, jaw set. They vanished into the portal. The light closed behind them. The platform grew quiet. I remained there for a while, watching the area where the rift had been. 6 stones hummed in the background, their combined presence filling the realm with steady power. I wasn't worried. I had chosen capable warriors. If they failed, they would either return or die. Either way, I would learn something. Time passed. The realm flowed through its cycle. Planets rotated. Energy currents shifted. Creatures evolved. My attention monitored all of it at once, but part of my focus stayed fixed on the thin connection that still linked my energy to Wanda's chaos and to the guard. That link crossed universes now. At first, it remained steady. Then it shook. The strain was sudden, like a tension spike in a stable line. I felt it immediately. Vera's presence flared, then dimmed. Kor's force surged and fragmented. Rin and Drake's signatures spun, forced into defensive patterns. Wanda's chaos burned sharp and bright, then flickered. Pietro's presence darted around her, fast shocks of motion and impact. Something hit them. The connection wavered, then stabilized at a weakened level. No one had died. But they were outmatched. I waited. I did not intervene, not yet. This was their mission. I had ordered them to retreat if they could not win. They knew the rule. Hours later, the first rift opened again. It was rough this time, edges jagged, space pushing against the tier. 2 figures fell through onto the platform hard. Wanda and Pietro. Wanda landed on one knee, one hand braced on the stone to catch herself. Her hair was a mess, clothes burned and torn at the sleeves. Blood trailed from a cut above her brow, already starting to close from contact with the realm's energy. Her eyes glowed dim red, then faded as she forced herself to stand. Pietro crashed down beside her, rolling on his back with a grimace. His jacket was ripped, and the skin on his arms and neck was bruised and darkened by impacts. His breathing was uneven, but not failing. I stepped forward. Where are the others? Wanda clenched her jaw, standing slowly. They're alive, she said, voice slightly strained. Still on the other side. They held the exit open for us. Pietro pushed himself up, wincing. Yet. They told us to run. For once, I listened, he said tiredly. My eyes narrowed slightly. Report. Wanda drew in a slow breath, steadying herself. Her hands shook once before she stilled them. The universe you chose, you were right. It's stronger. Much stronger than this one. She looked up at me fully. The stones there are not scattered. They're held by people who already know what they are. They guard them with everything they have. Pietro let out a humorless huff. Everything they have includes a guy who hits like a planet, another who plays with reality like it's clay, and someone who saw us coming before we arrived. Details, I said. Wanda nodded. We traced the signatures like you showed us. Space, power, mind. They were all clustered in a single point, first a tower. We approached slowly, cloaked, and tried to read it from a distance. And? I asked. The owner came to meet us, she said. He wasn't alone. They're strange, they're stark, they're others. Versions of them, but different. harder, smarter. They've already fought wars that your Earth hasn't reached yet. Pietro ran a hand through his hair. Their Stark had some kind of armor that moved like liquid, merged with his body, and his energy output was insane. The shields bounced my hits like they were nothing. And their Strange used the time stone like he'd been doing it his whole life, Wanda added quietly. He froze our attacks before they formed. He rewound your distortion anchor 3 times in a row without strain. He saw the stones inside you. He saw all of it. That was interesting. So their Strange had awareness beyond normal sorcerers. Useful to know. Did they say anything? I asked.